Well, Mick Ledden, welcome to the podcast. Absolutely delighted to have you on.
Hey Dara, thanks so much for having us on. Really delighted to be one of your guests.
Oh, thanks. So, I suppose I'll give the listeners a little bit of an intro into how we met. I think it was through Rob, the co-founder of Inward Bound. I think it was at a men's circle. Was it maybe 6 or 7 years ago?
Yeah, I think it might have been one of your first or maybe the first men's circle in Fumbly Stables.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I remember. It was definitely one of the first ones, maybe on like the Father or the Shadow or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a real privilege to get to know you over the last number of years. I really see you as an embodiment of service. Your background is so diverse. You have so many amazing passions and projects going at the moment, and I feel so privileged I get to work with you so intimately with Inward Bound and in the screening process, and as a facilitator, and as one of our integration counselors. So I'd just love to get a little bit of a background on, what was a catalyst for you to get into the work that you do?
Yeah, sure. Well, I suppose I figured out quite young that I liked working with people, first of all. I got a job in college working in a homeless hostel. So the options were, just trying to get a job just for some extra money, but ended up not being so sure about taking a job in a homeless hostel in the city centre, and I ended up working there for 7 years. So on that journey, I kind of figured out I loved working with people. Meanwhile, I was actually studying a degree in religion and theology as an atheist at the time. So I was kind of interested in that sort of like mystical, maybe paradigm, why people do what they do, what's the story with religion, what's the story with spirituality, and looking at that through kind of a critical lens. So that was kind of an interest at the college, whereas the working with people was kind of a passion. And it was after maybe exploring a few things in college, then I decided, do you know what, actually, I just want to be, I'd love to be a psychotherapist. My dad's a therapist. So, more than 10 years ago now, I started my training as a psychotherapist while working in the homeless hostel, which is where I met Rob, the other co-founder of Inward Bound. And me and him kind of just struck up a friendship. I don't think we ever discussed psychedelics per se, but maybe we both knew that we were interested in things outside of, like, we loved the curriculum. We were interested in other things outside the curriculum too. And then I suppose I worked through my training. I finished it out, but I'd had maybe through college as well some exposure to Dunderry Park, to Shamanism Ireland, where Martin Duffy from Shamanism Ireland came to the university and gave a talk. So as first exposure to that when I was maybe 20. And we went to Dunderry for a retreat in college when I was about 21. So I think that planted a lot of seeds for me too.
So lucky as a 21-year-old getting those seeds planted by Martin.
Yeah, not realizing all the connections, just thinking, oh, this is something interesting. So then I think just like later on, we're talking maybe six-ish years ago now. Actually, a lot of the journey was I suppose from Rob. I went to my first cacao ceremony. I felt the call to go do holotropic breathwork, and then on a bit of advice from Rob, I actually went to South America and took part in a week-long ayahuasca retreat. Almost as a curiosity, I was like, I'm a therapist. I'm interested in the most dynamic ways of healing, and I wanted to experience it. But I suppose from that retreat, I just came away way more than I bargained for. It completely shifted my perspective, opened my eyes. Just ontologically, spiritually, personally, some priorities in life shifted, some other ones got reaffirmed. And I suppose, that's around that time I started saying, well, actually, I'd actually love to really work with psychedelics if I could, as well as continue to explore them for my own growths. So in a snapshot, that's kind of, how it all just flowed to getting into this work.
Yeah, I love that. No, it's so beautiful, and I love the way like you've come at it from like a place of kind of trying to understand maybe things, philosophically, intellectually, and also from a point of wanting to be in service. a lot of people who start their healing journeys come from a place of, maybe the wounded healer. They have a big depression, they have a big life crisis, and there's kind
Mm.
of a feeling of, oh, I need to heal myself, fix myself, work on myself. And then they kind of start on the path where, you've come at it from a point of, I want to be in service. That's kind of what I hear, and I think your work
Mm.
really really stands to that. When I first became aware of you, I saw the work that you did around anxiety. So
No.
you're the founder of Anxiety Ireland, and for me, on my own journey, anxiety was one of the big catalysts for me. I was really struggling with anxiety around work, um, you know, trying to, function in a really highly stressful environment, trying to produce work results in a lab, and life was just getting on top of me. So I think I
Mhm.
really appreciated your work around anxiety. Could you speak a little bit into why you set up that, and maybe a little bit about what anxiety is and how you work
Mm.
with it?
Yeah, 100%. And I suppose sort of though tied to that in what you were saying there, though, it made me think that, yeah, it was funny when I was doing the homeless work, I felt like, oh, I'm pretty together. And then I was like, I'm going to train as a therapist, thinking about being of service. And of course, then doing the personal therapy and realizing I had so much other stuff going on in the background I wasn't even aware of, including like maybe a bit of like, I suppose, kind of a high pressured, perfectionistic kind of anxiety type character going on. So yeah, I went in thinking, oh yeah, do I even really need to do the therapy? Sure, I'll enjoy it, but and then realizing, oh my God, there's so much here I need to work on.
Oh, it's always
So
that way,
for
isn't it? You open one door and there's two more doors on the other side.
exactly, yeah. And I find that with psychedelic work as well. I went into that, thinking, oh yeah, I'm doing this as a curiosity, but I got way more than I bargained for. Opened up so much healing and deep release and deep kind of catharsis and perspective shifts that I didn't even realize were possible. So even though, yeah, I came at it from that angle, of like, oh, I wonder what this would be like. You discover what's behind the curtain and you see there's so much there. Um, well, yeah, I suppose the anxiety work, Anxiety Ireland is kind of a website and small business that we have a number of anxiety therapists, therapists who work with anxiety, because anxiety is kind of everywhere and there's no specialism to work with anxiety, but therapists who would have encountered it a lot, that are available to book online, and there's a network of people who are now working that way. And I suppose that came out of probably being in my mid-20s myself during my training and working in a college. Anxiety seemed to be the main thing I was meeting in the, I suppose, the student cohort of clients, which I obviously noted as interesting. I was doing my own anxiety, and then uh, kind of when I came out of that and started working more with like the general adult population, again, it was just seemed like every like every other person was there specifically for anxiety, or there was anxiety traits in all of them. And so I did some extra trainings, read a bunch of books around it, do quite a bit around like CBT actually, and just how
Mhm.
some of the some of the things that I was never taught, I didn't really learn in college or school, or my folks didn't tell me, just around how our kind of thinking patterns and behavior patterns and these loops can form, that could just mean that we're kind of acting and living off a negative script that sort of can shrink our comfort zone quite a lot. So I just thought that that was very fascinating, and I saw a lot of clients starting to get better through a bit of psychoeducation and a personalized exploration around what was going on for them in those areas. I also found though too that it was also a beautiful way to begin to just take some action immediately that helped clients, help to set up the relationship and deepen it. And the way it flows, or the way it can flow for me anyway, is that it can set the ground really well for future deeper exploration. So
Oh, yeah.
CBT always had that image of like, oh, it's too surfacey, it's too narrow, and plaster over the wound. And like, yeah, it can be that way if it's just done like that.
Yeah.
But it can also begin a journey. It's like you need a little bit of anesthetic and some coping skills, before you maybe dive in and do the surgery. If you dive in and do the surgery straight from the off, it can be a bit raw. So that'd be kind of how I got into that work. And I was thinking that was going to be my main focus until probably, well, I suppose until I started working with you guys and feeling the power of psychedelics myself and seeing people get well through it.
Yeah.
So,
No, no, thanks so much for that. I think, anxiety's I feel like it's one of the malaises of our time, anxiety, ADHD, depression, these are the ones that we really are hearing a lot about and how they're really like debilitating for people. And for me, I was a highly functioning anxious person, but I didn't know I was, and I had no language, I had no awareness, I had no terminology around it until, I met other people that maybe said, "Here, Dara, I think you might be like suffering with anxiety." And it was only through, connecting with other people that then I felt, yeah, a sense of, it's not just me. I feel like anxiety can be a really lonely sort of
mm,
issue for people. You feel like, oh, it's only me, I'm struggling, always in a place of, nervous system dysregulation, stress, trying to get things done last minute, feeling overwhelmed. And for me, I think one of the biggest things what helped was getting more awareness of one, my breath and
mm,
understanding how that, how I was just shallow breathing from the top of my lungs up half the time because I was like in this kind of like heightened arousal state. And then two, mindfulness. So what what
mm.
what what else would you say are kind of some good practices for people with anxiety?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think around breathing, that's something I'd really try to focus on with clients in a lot of first sessions because it's amazing how people maybe there is that kind of nowadays disconnect from our bodies, from being aware of like, oh, I'm, you know, 20% more in fight or flight than I was half an hour ago. I wonder what's happening. Normally we're so just consumed and lost in what we're doing that we can sort of lose touch with that. So I do try and bring in a kind of a menu of grounding techniques from breathing techniques, muscle relaxation, earthing techniques, just visual kind of stimulus kind of grounding techniques that people can do, tapping techniques. And I suppose yeah, really, I try to explain to clients why that is. A lot of people say, oh, breathing off, that doesn't work. But when, you maybe teach people a little bit about, the blood oxygen CO2 levels and how when you're breathing shallowly, you're expelling all your carbon dioxide that you need to keep your blood balanced, and that by doing these longer breaths where there's a bit of a breath hold and an exhale, box breathing, 4-7-8 breathing, how that actually is rebalancing.
Mm,
And education around, all these things like what are panic attacks, negative, catastrophic interpretations. I try to kind of explain it to people, the way we all have a particular style of speaking, we all have a particular style of thinking. And if our thinking is we're using too many shoulds, or there's kind of perfectionistic expectations, or glass empty rather than never half full, or we overgeneralize, or our thinking style is we always look for blame, blaming ourselves or blaming others. If we personalize things, if we're doing other people's thinking for them, you
yeah.
know, we overestimate our responsibility or our sort of ability to control the emotions of others. There's a whole sort of map there that you can work through with people to see, hey, what thoughts here are causing these issues? What could be the hot thoughts? And thoughts are very amenable. And that's why psychedelics are so amazing. In a session, they bring in that neuroplasticity, that fresh blanket of snow that allows people to kind of rewire their entrenched paths of thinking. Sometimes the CBT is a little bit like, you've got a haystack and you've got a pliers and you're trying to take away one piece of hay at a time. The psychedelic is kind of like a big fan that just blows a load of it away, I suppose. Um, but again, not everyone is for psychedelics. Some people can have maybe a particular area that they can treat with something like CBT.
Yeah.
And the last thing is probably, well, I also look, around the emotions, around the social circle, and around behavioral stuff. If your behavior is starting to change, you're avoiding things or you're seeking excessive reassurance, double checking things, avoiding social situations, always asking someone, "Are we okay? Am I okay?" Spending a lot of time on Googling, am I dying? Is this pain normal? If you're doing all those things, you're probably in the short term helping yourself, but in the long term, you're diminishing your capacity to reassure yourself and deal with
Yeah.
uncertainty. So
Mm.
yeah, I'd kind of focus on those areas first. And most people, when we go through that, they go, "Oh my God, I do all of those things and more."
Yeah, I could definitely see myself ticking some of those boxes at the time. And yeah, I think it's kind of like, yeah, really rewiring the brain, reframing. And for me, what worked really well as well was like positive affirmations.
Mm,
Listening to positive affirmations and trying to really like empty out the old beliefs and the old thoughts and
mm,
reintroduce these kind of new ways of seeing myself, thinking. And I love what you said there. It's really, the dialogue of the mind. It's really important, and I think it's one of the biggest things we can do in inner work is to really sit down,
mm,
look at that dialogue, and approach it with compassion, curiosity, and acceptance. And when you do that, it's kind of like, okay, how can I make this my friend? What do they
mm,
call anxiety and depression, like the big black dog? How can you befriend it rather than pushing it away, pushing these parts away, and then they just get
mm,
bigger and louder. But yeah, no, thanks so much for those, and I'm sure people will definitely find them beneficial. And that's the thing, yeah, with psychedelics, they kind of create that like cognitive flexibility as well. It's
mm,
these new thoughts, these new beliefs can be yeah, reintroduced. Yeah, and I'd love you to, yeah, maybe we'll go straight into that. I'd love for you to, you've been working with Inverbound now, maybe 3 or 4 years. And you deal a lot with our screening and our preparation, our integration. What do you kind of see as like the therapeutic benefit of psilocybin, of psychedelics? How do you feel that they can help people grow, transform, or work with the mind ultimately?
yeah. Like, I think it's a huge question. There's so many different areas in which they can help folks. For doing integration sessions with people, a lot of times I try and break it down into maybe different spheres where people may notice a change. There may have been a release, there may have been a bit of a rewiring, and for people to maybe understand that these spheres, a lot of them, they overlap. And indeed, in one psychedelic experience, all the spheres could pretty much overlap in one journey. So one we were talking about already is probably around like the mental cognitive sides of themselves. How rigid were those thoughts and beliefs? Maybe a change in some core beliefs, maybe, based on the experience, an increased sense of self-love or value or appreciation. It seems to be a great, and that's kind of maybe going into the emotional sphere, a great kind of reconnector, that it sort of replugs us almost back into the mainframe. People feel that heightened sense of connectivity to themselves, to others. Um, there can be a lot of positive emotions, which can have a positive, almost emotionally corrective experience on some of our beliefs about ourselves and of life. What is life? You know? So cognitively can change a bit of our script, a bit of our story, emotionally replug into positive emotions, but can also allow for a deep level of catharsis. So psilocybin in particular, the medicine that we use, can be particularly physical. A lot of people expect a fireworks show, but sometimes it can be a very much a somatic mapping and show. If a lot of our unconscious material is stored in our bodies, people can heave, sob, cry, kick, roll, tense up. There could be all this kind of somatic work where sometimes people know what that is, to go, oh my God, I was releasing my inner child's pain. I was releasing, years of even other people's tension and trauma, or years of living in a tense household. And sometimes they don't know. they're just releasing somatically. So we'd encourage that. And that seems to increase, health. You could have in the physical area, when I think physically, again, I think a lot of stuff that's stored in the muscles, but also around the nervous system. A lot of people seem to get a deep nervous system reset of releasing those years of trauma to be able to return the nervous system to baseline. You can see behavioral changes in people if you're changing the way you're thinking and you're changing the way you're processing emotions, getting into them more easily, less emotional baggage, and your nervous system's more relaxed after an experience. Maybe then's the time that you can start to really plan a life without alcohol, or plan a life where you push yourself to go out more and, see friends, start healthy habits, to eat right. Our retreats as well is a big component around that, right? That you're not just coming with us to do psilocybin, you're also receiving this whole holistic package, which we encourage people to keep going afterwards. And like some other areas would be, around the spiritual realm. Again, linked to all the others. You've had such an amazing experience. It's changed the way you think. It opens you up more to connection, to spirituality, to nature, whatever that means for you. So we're non-prescriptive, but a lot of folks report an increased sense of spiritual meaning in their life, a deepening of current spiritual practices, of curiosity that maybe wasn't there before. That's what happened for me for sure. I was a rocket up to what in terms of like, oh my God, there's so much more out there than I realized. I want to go deeper. Um, things you mightn't have considered before, like past lives or ancestral stuff, energies, that all comes into flow. Then of course there's social dynamic as well. So like as you can see, all these layers are like stacked on top of each other, weaving in and out. The social layer of who do I keep in my life? Who are the social connections, the people, lovers and friends I haven't met yet, because now I want to explore things in cacao ceremonies, or I want to go out and meet new people, or the boundaries I need to start to have now all of a
Mhm.
sudden because I value myself more. I'm better at expressing my emotions. My nervous system isn't so regulated. I've dealt with that trauma. Um, those kind of things start to change as well. So in terms of like the work in the session, that's kind of the big, I always go the chiropractor, the crack bang wall up, I suppose, of like putting yourself back on an even keel. But then, you still need to build up your life, I suppose, afterwards by going out and putting these changes into effect. So those kind of 6 areas all come into play, and we all need grace, patience, faith in ourselves that we can do it, and that it's gonna take time and it's gonna be an up and down journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Compassion, kindness, just being your own best friend with it all. Oh, thanks for that. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful way of putting it. And yeah, integration for me is really about how can you enact positive behavioral change, and the real journey starts after the psychedelic journey. A lot of people almost don't plan for that. It can be quite a tricky one to navigate. With psychedelics you can have this huge expansion, and then after comes this contraction. And
Mm.
it's really how are you going to put all the realizations, the wisdom, the clarity, the understanding you had into a practice, or into a day-to-day life plan, or daily practice, or how are you going to set your trajectory forward. And one thing that I've been really sitting with recently is like the power of psychedelics, and how they are a pretty big, catalyst for transformation, shift, and change. Their
Good.
intervention into who you are. There's I think for every psychedelic journey I take, there's a Dara before and a Dara after.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a death and rebirth always. And I feel very blessed that all the deaths have sometimes been more challenging than others, but the births have always been very beautiful, and sometimes tricky, and sometimes like, whoa, I need to approach that now. How do I navigate this? I'm getting this really strong message. I need to do this or do that.
Uh-huh.
How's that going to fit into how I see myself, my life, where I'm at. But yeah, I think, what I really love about psychedelics, and, like you were saying earlier, they're not for everybody, at certain stages of people's lives, they might be very useful. What I really love is the ability to really anchor us in time, and to
Mm.
really, give us kind of a bit of a life review. It's like, oh, here I
Yeah.
am. This is where I'm at. You got to feel the feelings. Psychedelics
Yeah.
really amp up whatever's going on for you. They're the non-specific amplifiers of your conscious state. So whatever's going on down there, you're going to feel it.
Yeah.
Um, but they have massive potential for transformation and for growth for people. So yeah,
Mhm.
integration is something that I feel really important. It's almost more important than the journey itself, because otherwise it's just a peak experience. You come, you have this thing, it happens, you have like a wonderful week, and then you're back out into the world, and you're straight back into, like, not eating
Mm.
well, in a environment that you shouldn't be in, maybe doing, stuff that's not really aligning with your values, or, really amping up your vices or getting distracted. So yeah, I really love the work you do around integration. Yeah, you have the project, the Psychedelic Integration Ireland.
Yeah.
Do you want to speak into that?
Yeah, sure. So that was actually a bit of, again, kind of born of personal experience coming back from my own retreat, even though I knew my own experience of ayahuasca in Peru, that I knew I probably could have reached out to Rob, reached out to you, reached out to some people, but it honestly, it caused me such profound changes, and even caused, nearly like this whole identity thing. Who the hell am I? There's definitely the me before and the me after. It was such a strong experience that actually, yeah, akin to what you were saying, I was feeling quite lonely after that journey. Um, I was also in the midst of South America, and I didn't exactly have the best integration plan for afterwards. I was still there for another 3 weeks, and I was going to all these like places to have fun, I suppose. So in hindsight, I might have done that a little bit differently. But I suppose, yeah, like I was quite lucky that I knew people who were in this world, and I had a close sister who was great. I had a good therapist who, although he hasn't worked with psychedelics, I knew I could talk to. And I'd done a lot of therapy myself, which kind of helped stay grounded in the whole thing. But then I thought, my God, but I just did this not on a whim, but out of curiosity. How many other people are, curious about this, exploring it, but maybe there's deep trauma there, or they have nobody when they come back from one of these experiences to talk to. So that's really to avoid the safety issues for people around that. That's why I thought Psychedelic Integration Ireland was something that I wanted to maybe to birth or to bring out, so that folks would just know if they're exploring psychedelics in their own space in their own time. So I don't provide any psychedelic like ceremonies or work in Ireland, just over the legalities. But if anyone has done what I did, they went to a retreat center, or they did a retreat, could be 6 months ago, they feel they didn't integrate it properly, or they're grappling with a big life decision after psychedelics, or they just want therapy with someone who's informed about psychedelics. Yeah, I wanted to make that available to the public in Ireland, so that folks wouldn't be left with nowhere to turn,
Yeah,
basically.
and I think that's so beautiful. Like that kind of core mission of wanting to support people, create safety, and genuinely help people. You know what I mean? I think
Mm.
one of the biggest issues with people going to psychedelic ceremonies and doing psychedelics themselves is not really understanding the implications of having an experience like that.
Mm.
A huge trauma release, a really big existential moment of, questioning maybe a long-term relationship,
Yeah.
owning a house, a career you've been on for years, and, what to really do with all that after. So, if anybody is looking to do psychedelics or plant medicine ceremonies, I always say, like, if it's not with me or Inward Bound, I say, do they have a preparation program? Do they have an integration program? is there somebody you can get on the phone to before, after,
Mhm.
3 months later, 6 months later, because I've heard a lot of, like, stories of people going to the jungle in South America and having these experiences and then not being able to get in touch with anybody after. And it can be a very lonely route. You're kind of very
Mhm.
right, it can be a very isolating route. And you're a very well resourced man. You'd done a lot of work. You had your psychotherapy training under your belt. And it was
Yeah.
similar for me before I started to really delve deep into the psychedelic space. I had a bit of a yoga practice behind me. I had a bit of a meditation practice. I was, getting my breath work, my embodiment exercises up. But some people, they just get an Instagram ad these days. They turn up, they have an ayahuasca ceremony, a 5-MeO DMT ceremony, and they're completely blown to smithereens. And it's trying to put the pieces back together. Can be very challenging and difficult, especially when you don't have the connections. And that's why I think something like the mission that you have there with Psychedelic Integration Ireland, people can really just Google that, and then they have somebody. So it's about creating that awareness as well, that there are people out there. And
Mm.
just circling back to the start of our conversation, you turned up at the Psychedelic Brothers of Ireland, which was the
Yep.
men's work project that myself and Rob started 6 years ago. The men's work and men's group, and that was a group for men who have had altered states of consciousness experiences through
Mm.
whatever breath work, medicine, traveling, and it was an open space for people to connect and to not have the stigma around it. So it's great that these things do exist out there in the world, and people can connect with me, you, or those organizations, and then have an integration plan. um, I really love, on the retreats, the kind of the sense of the group integration where people are really keeping each other
Super.
accountable, staying in touch. There's that sense of belonging. There's that sense of camaraderie, the communitas, people supporting one another, sending each other books, resources, links. I
Mm.
love to
It's
see
great.
that. And it's how do we stay connected in an isolated world, really? We live in a world of um, you know, living in our apartments by ourselves, not getting to fully connect with community. And having those spaces are so important. So yeah, thanks for putting that out into the world.
No, no, my pleasure. Yeah, I think community is so, so, so important coming through this work. And I mean, at one stage I thought, oh my God, will I still be friends with my friends? Yes, I'm even deeper friends with my friends, but we never talk about psychedelics. But it's so great to have that sense of community and folks that you can reach out to and say, hey, this is what I'm integrating this week, or hey, there's some shadow coming up, or there's, the last journey was, well, really deep, or even just that support, even if you choose to take a break from psychedelics for a while, which is also a good thing to do, you to know when you've had enough and take breaks. The community aspects coming together, with like-minded folks, so important.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that really leads me into, like, your a big kind of community project at the moment, I'd say. And it's probably like yeah, the one of the most things I'm proud of you of is getting psychedelic or PsyCare Ireland off the ground. What are you, a year old now?
Yeah, 2 years old.
2 years old.
two
Wow,
years old.
amazing. Well,
Yeah.
you had your 2-year birthday at Fwynham, isn't that's right.
Mhm.
Yeah, I remember. Amazing. So yeah, PsyCare Ireland. Yeah. Tell me all
Yeah,
about
man.
it.
So PsyCare, yeah, there's been PsyCare Ireland basically is a welfare and harm reduction social enterprise, a non-profit, completely run by volunteers. And yeah, our mission is to be at every Irish music festival and concert where people would need maybe some mental health support, or where substance-induced mental health crises are likely to occur. So yeah, PsyCare Ireland was born again when I was trying to look into getting into this work. Um, a friend of mine told me about Cosmicare in Portugal at Boom Festival, that they have a psychedelic welfare organization that's there to support anyone going through a difficult time, maybe on substances. Um, so the year I was up into Boom wasn't on that year, but I did then notice, oh wow, there's another group, PsyCare UK, that's seeded from them. So I've been an avid festival goer like since I was 17, had numerous adventures or innumerable adventures and numerous misadventures at music festivals. Uh,
Haven't we all?
so haven't we all? Yeah, and see my friends go through tough times at music festivals. And music festivals, you just sometimes you might just see people are just in a bad way. You know that they're lost, confused, they're high, they're tripping, they're not in a good space. So when I heard about services like this, I thought, oh my God, that's such a great idea. Why is that not in Ireland? So I went to the UK and volunteered over there, completely blown away by the amazing service and the community. I was like, oh my God, this like community. I had so many interesting conversations with like new people, the most I've probably ever had, up to that point at the PsyCare event. And when I came back to Ireland from that, I just felt like asking the question, oh, why is nobody doing this in Ireland? Like, or who's tried? So those questions kind of set me on or set me and the group on a really interesting journey where, the sort of core committee of PsyCare Ireland started to form. So Mr. Declan Hammond, incredible master homeopathist and teacher, who's worked at Boone Festival since 2006. Kira Sherlock founded the Irish Psychedelic Society. Um, Myself coming in kind of nearly under their tutelage, learning so much from them. My sister Kat is a doctor and a psychedelic researcher. Some other core committee members, a mate Dave, who I knew from Dundee days as a college student, who had a big interest in psychedelics. Ourselves and a few others, we kind of formed, Stephen Gavin, a psychiatrist in Cork. We formed the first committee, just almost thinking, "Oh, let's start a community project. Fwynham may want a welfare service." But that year's Fwynham was actually cancelled due to COVID. This is 2021 we're talking. But by then, the ball had already started rolling. So, yeah, high level overview. Now we've 140 volunteers. We did 5 festivals in 2023. We had 189 guests of the service supported through mental health crisis or, substance-induced issues. I don't have the exact stats off the top of my head how many of those were psychedelics, but I think it was around 20. But you're seeing everything from panic attacks, lost friends, fights with partners to big, huge cases where somebody needs several hours of multiple people support because they've taken a monstrous amount of psychedelics. Um, yeah, and it's all completely run by volunteers. So we go to events, we have our own tents, we decorate them, to be friendly, kind of comfortable spaces for people. It's non-clinical. We have our own kitchen, and a lot of our volunteers will get to go and enjoy some of the festival while they're there working with PsyCare. So yeah, it's been like such a passion project, I suppose, in a way, that even in a year we went full in of 2022, we had a bell tent and something like 8 volunteers, one bell tent, poorly lit, couldn't really see it. At that time, we'd no bank account, no budget to. We've actually won several social enterprise grants, been nominated Best Social Enterprise in Ireland this year. Had benefit concerts, been on RTE, 2FM, RT News, Journal E. Yeah, constantly people looking to get involved, which is amazing. We just expanded our committee. And yeah, in 2024, we're going to be hopefully expanding our remit to reach maybe up to another 3 or 4 larger festivals and training another 50 to 100 volunteers. Yeah, to provide welfare in these spaces where it's sorely needed. So I think that's do as much as I can get out in a short space of time.
It's the elevator pitch. I love it. No, there's so much in there, like these spaces are so sorely needed in festivals. Festivals are places of growth, transformation, healing,
Mm,
love, chaos. It's all there, in a festival weekend. If anybody, who knows festivals and has been to a festival, you ride that roller coaster. There's many moments of growth and lessons and teachings at festivals. Festivals are spaces that have been created for thousands of years. Gathering people with common beliefs, values, understandings. Connection to tribe, community,
mm,
music, and those things are all enhanced with substances. So that's why there's always tons of substances at these festivals. And it brings me to the point that, you know, people take substances, and we know people take substances.
Mm.
It's part of being a human. It's been there for thousands of years. You know, Terence McKenna's stoned ape hypothesis that, you know, when we were hominids, we came down out of the trees and we ate magic mushrooms to feed ourselves. Um, and these magic mushrooms may have, you know, influence higher cognition, evolution of language or
Mm.
brain. You know, wonderful kind of hypothesis. Lots of different kind of indigenous cultures still work with psychoactive plants, medicines. You know, they take them in microdose form or they take them in ceremonial form. You know, people work with substances, and that really needs to be acknowledged, you know. And I think the
Mm.
work you're doing with PsyCare Ireland is really breaking down that stigma. You know, I think it's really getting out there into the mainstream. You know, it's so heartwarming to hear that you're winning social enterprise grants,
Mm.
because it's really an acknowledgement of
Mm.
your service, and that this is a service that is needed in the world. Um, and you
Mm.
know, on site, I've been in the tents. I've got to chat to volunteers. You know,
Mm.
Declan's one of my long term mentors and teachers as well. And just, you know, the absolute joy that that space brings. You know,
Mm.
walking by, it's kind of like, wow, I know if anything distressing happens, and it can happen to anybody, you know, even myself experienced, someone else experienced. You just never know when you kind of roll the dice of psychedelics.
Mm.
You know, that having that space there, it's kind of like a safety net, a blanket. It's like, wow, I know, you know, no matter what's happening, I can go there. And it's wonderful to hear that it's not just for people with, you know, psychedelic induced stress or
Mm.
you know, issues, that, you know, it is a safe space ultimately. And it's one of the pillars of, I think it's one of the pillars, it should be one of the pillars of every single festival, is kind of having that kind of supportive health space. And you know, it's so lovely to walk through the festival grounds and see
Mm.
those little blue vests kind of hanging around. You know, it's like they're like the angels, like the little guardian angels. They're kind of floating around, and that they, you know, if you see someone, you can just say it to them, and then they can, like, you know, have that kind of nice kind chat and connect with people. So, you know, bringing that awareness to people that, you know, it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay
Mm.
to get support, and that the support is there and it's offered, and it's kind of, yeah, non-clinical. It's non um what's the word, there's no like Garda involved or that kind of thing. It's
Yeah,
very,
yeah.
you know, you can turn up and you're treated as a human. You're treated confidentially. You're given a safe space to process, to connect, to decompress, to regulate yourself with, you know, some wonderful, amazing volunteers. And what's the kind of the process? Because, you know, it's amazing to see it grow from just those few volunteers to hundreds of volunteers now. And I always
Mhm.
point people in your direction for anybody who wants to get involved in the psychedelic world. Is, well, let's start there, go there. So yeah,
Yeah.
what do you do in terms of, you know, volunteers, training, application? How does that all work?
Yeah, totally, Dara. That's thank you. That found that way of like expressing what it is was so great, you know, and like brings such a smile to my heart, you know, to hear you say that, you know, about our little blue angels and just the safe space that it is. That's always what I wanted it to be. Yeah. And it's also, you know, it's a community as well, you know. So amongst the volunteers, we try to do a lot of activities. And yeah, every February, normally from February to March, we open depending on, you know, our estimated level of need of how many, because we do want volunteers who are with us to get opportunities in the field. So we're currently working, trying to work and get some big festivals across the line for 2024. So fingers crossed. So we're putting out the call to say, yeah, well, we hope we're going to need a lot of volunteers, but we'll see early in the new year. But we'll be definitely be taking on a few, and people will see it on our Instagram. They'll see it on our website. We'll probably share it across. You know, we're trying to start a TikTok or one of these new social, like the Threads. You know, we're trying to get the brand out there. We did a press release last year. Did a lot of media around it. So when we're opening up the applications, people can download, fill in some basic details on our website, download an application form and a reference, and you'll get like our handbook. You'll get like some more personalized information about what to expect. Then we just simply ask that people return that application form and they return the reference. And once that's in before the deadline, it'll allow one of our committee members to read through it, give you a call, chat to you. And if everything, depending on the level of the number of people we're able to take on, depending on what you put in the form, there's no trick questions, but we just assess, your heart. Why do you want to do this work? The, qualifications aren't necessarily the biggest thing, more that you have experience of a difficulty, maybe in an altered state of consciousness that can empathize and be non-judgmental with
Mm.
somebody else. That's our core criteria. So, I would say we'd rather take somebody with that than somebody with, 3 PhDs and 6 master's degrees who looks scornfully down their nose at someone. There's no question who we'd rather have. Um, and yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, that's one of the things that I really love about the world of psychedelics, in Rebound, PsyCare Ireland, is that you get to work with an interdisciplinary team of people. You could have a psychiatrist beside you could have a homeopathic doctor beside you could have a meditation teacher beside you, a
Mm,
shamanic counselor, a medical doctor, a psychotherapist, a voice worker, a medicine man, medicine woman. It's just a really like it's real like human, I think, it's kind of full spectrum. And I think that's really beautiful because humans are full spectrum. We can't just treat them like
true.
medical numbers, like the
100%.
the the kind of how a lot of the health system is kind of geared at the moment. It's very much in that kind of Western ideology of, you have a label and you get treated this way and that's it. It's very like very narrow and restrictive where working with psychedelics is a bit more full spectrum.
Totally, yeah. There's not quite so much putting people in boxes, and there's a few points as well about PsyCare. Yeah, so I'm doing our annual report right now. Our youngest volunteer this year was 19, and our oldest was 76. So
Amazing.
you're going to be working with a broad spectrum of folks, though we do couple of limitations to what we do. Well, first we provide folks with an online learning portal where they've got 16 hours of content to work through in their own time. So it's no small undertaking, the training. And then a full day's training in Dublin, where we go through things like, boundaries, role plays, medical emergencies, tricky situations that you might encounter, working with other services, case studies, some very important dramatizations of real cases, with the names changed.
Yeah, I've
That
seen I've seen I've seen the videos of you rolling around on the ground.
exactly, yeah, that's my favorite part of the year, really. But what I'm Um, and we do that, and a couple of things just to say on Psychcare is that a major thing is we are a harm reduction organization, so we don't promote the use of any drugs. We're not telling people, oh hey, we're not trying to increase that likelihood, but the statistics are HSE survey, 94.2% of people admitted that they had used drugs at festivals, and that was a pretty big case, pretty big number of respondents to that survey. So we know it's happening. We offer harm reduction information, always saying, the only safe way to use a substance is probably not to. But look, people are using, so we do have like harm reduction information, like unsafe combinations we advise people of, and advise people on the risks. Look, how are you feeling today mentally? Setting. You're going to be having a lot of those conversations, which are so important.
Absolutely, it's amazing, and that's something I'm so passionate about is psychedelic education.
Hmm.
It's like you're kind of just given, you're just given this huge, massive potential kind of tablet or pill or powder, and you know, you if you haven't taken any psychedelics, you really don't know what you're getting yourself in for it because there's no way, nothing compares to it. It's like even I try to say to people like, well, when you're really drunk on alcohol, it's completely not like that, but
Hmm.
it is a different state of mind and consciousness. It's the only way I can describe it, and it's so much like psychedelics are so much better than alcohol. But it's the only way I think people can actually like, it get that kind of in their mind, So having this kind of like, yeah, I know that chart from tripsit.com about
Mm,
the combinations, which substances definitely not to mix, setting, substance, dosage, timing of substance. It's all this preparation, which I'm passionate about helping people with. I know you are too, and I think it's really amazing that you guys are also holding that kind of pole as well for psychedelic education, because in my opinion, decriminalization just does not work. It kind of disempowers the person to make a kind of an adult choice, and
mm,
it disempowers them to actually receive the correct information. When I went to Canada a few years ago, for the first time, I walked into a dispensary, a marijuana
mm.
dispensary, and the guy behind the counter was like, "Hey, let me know. I can tell you everything you need to know about all of these strains and the terpenes and the CBD, THC contents, and where they were grown." And I was just like, "Wow,
Oh,
this is nuts!" Like, he knows all of these things and he can tell me, and I was just like loving it. I was like, "That's how it should be for psychedelics." So yeah, having PsyCare Ireland is absolutely amazing, and I hope that we have more testing facilities as well. That's a whole nother area, and eventually not having the kind of the ban, or what's the word, the
just
prohibition.
the
You know,
prohibition, yeah.
prohibition. It doesn't work. So yeah, really, you
Mhm.
guys holding that pole of psychedelic education is incredible.
Oh, thanks, sorry. Yeah, and like, like we want to work with all partners. Like we want to work with the HSC, with the drug study, with the drugs checking services, with medics. We always refer any medical issue to medics, and we take pressure off medics, security firms. They're normally telling us, "Oh my God, thank God you guys are here. We wouldn't have had the time to sit with that person. We had to go back. There was physical injuries." We're trying to get our own research off the ground really to show number one, the need for our service, and number two, the value of the intervention, how it can make a difference for people. Yeah, and just
Yeah,
try
it's
to we're growing, and so it'd be great to hear from people maybe if they have a skill set they want to get involved, or even if they don't want to be necessarily a volunteer in the field, people can get in touch, or again, people can wait till February and follow our social media channels, and they'll be sharing all that, having fundraisers, benefit gigs, raffles, you name it. We're kind of a just full grassroots project, on the rampage. We hope to making a change in the culture at Irish festivals and helping folks out.
Yeah, amazing, man. It is. It's that really like, yeah, trying to change the culture. And for me, like the word that kind of really lands for me at the moment is maturity. It's like
Mm.
how can we just be mature about this? People have these experiences, people take substances. How can we provide, yeah, these spaces, and let people know that they're welcome, and that they are able to access, um and yeah, I think it's just a really mature way of approaching life, and
Mm.
I love festivals so much, and to hear people have those challenging experiences without support is just so sad, because it's totally avoidable, you know what I mean? Or not necessarily totally avoidable, but the care can be there if somebody is, and you guys, I feel, should be at all major festivals. I think you should be like a pillar in festival culture, especially in Ireland. Yeah, and I really wish you all the best with that project. And yeah, if people are interested, I would 100% recommend to apply, do the training. And what I love as well is that you get a few hours off as well. You get a shift off to go out and enjoy the festival yourself. So it's not
Oh,
all work,
totally. It's ideally like, you the 6 hours on, 20 to 24 hours off.
yeah.
So we just ask people come back well rested and in a space, in a good space in themselves that they can work. So, but plenty of time to go out, dance, enjoy, get a solid rest, and then come back. And we've community meals. There's always an integration section afterwards for volunteers as well. And we can pretty much say, look, if you don't get picked for one festival or one team, then we try and pick a fresh team, based on the needs of the service and people who haven't been to one before. So yeah.
Yeah,
And
amazing.
hope we see you in the field, Dara.
I will. Yeah, that's definitely my plan this year. I've been following like the likes of Cosmic Air. I've been to Boom 3 times. I see that service. It's amazing. The Zendo project in America, Burning Man, PsyCare UK. I've connected with a bunch of people, and yeah, I need to get in the field. So I just love I love being a punter. I love being up the front dancing the whole time and going to all the workshops. But yeah, definitely,
Mm.
making a bit of space, to yeah be a part of that is definitely on my priority list. So Mick, like, wow, an amazing ranging conversation. Can't believe we're nearly hitting the hour. Yeah, is there anything you'd like to drop in before we finish up?
Mm. Kind of final thoughts. Yeah. Yeah, I suppose just want to say, thanks to psychedelics, I suppose, for that paradigm shifting, life changing, shaking me up, shaking what I thought possible up. I never thought I'd be doing such, amazing work, working in groups, um, organizing teams at festivals and things like that. I think, yeah, just it for me anyway, it made my focus much bigger than just myself, and that actually made things way more possible than I could have imagined. And whereas my hope is that, you know, that all of Europe and Ireland, that we kind of get our act together and maybe start to seriously look at what they're doing in Australia and like what the FDA trials from MAPS are, whatever the outcome of that is, or that we really start to look at this as a treatment that should be available for everybody, at affordable rates, with proper models of care, with trained therapists, and that psychedelics have that place in the culture where we can integrate their lessons, to make society and the world a better place. Right.
Beautiful. No, absolutely. There is no reason why this country can't be leaders in psychedelic
Mhm.
medicine. We led with the tax on plastic bags. We
Yeah.
led with the smoking ban, and there's
Wow.
absolutely no reason we can't be like one of the front runners in psychedelic medicine. But all joking aside, I think it's
Yeah.
well within our capacity. There's so many healers, teachers. We're like really a beautiful country of a health and well being. It's so in our DNA. Just stepping outside of that kind of
Mm.
societal conditioning, and you see like the beauty of the health and wellness that can be accessible in this country. And I think, you know, having our own indigenous medicine grow everywhere,
Yeah. Yeah.
it can be totally part of a health and wellness plan for people who want to go down that route. Yeah, I love that, Mick. Thanks so much for that. So yeah, where can people find out about you? Where can they connect with you if they want to work with you as anxiety therapist, a psychotherapist, an integration coach, a preparation coach, PsyCare Ireland? Give me all the deets.
Or I'll hit you with all the handles. Yeah. Uh, yeah, anxietyireland.ie for Anxiety Ireland for anyone looking to work with, CBT for anxiety and maybe to go a little bit deeper. Um, PII.ie, the Psychedelic Integration Ireland, but my mate said make it short and snappy, PII.ie. So up there you'll see, and often, psychedelic integration or psychedelic experiences often go with anxiety, so whatever the needs are, can work with you there as well, provide shamanic counseling, shamanic energy therapy technique. If people want to tap back into their journeys, we can do a little bit of that. So those are two places you can find to work with me personally. And then, of course, inwardbound.ie, you'll see me there as part of the team, and the amazing holistic psilocybin retreats that we offer there is worth a look, or inwardbound.nl. Sorry. And then psychareireland.org would be the place. So all the handles on Instagram are the same, just the names. Yeah, psychareireland.org. You can sign up to our newsletter, follow our Instagram. If you want to email us, we can add you to a list to be notified when we're looking for volunteers. And yeah, things like annual reports and all that stuff, good stuff like photo blogs. It's all up there. So yeah.
Amazing.
That's it, man.
Well,
Thank you so
Nick,
much.
you're an absolute man of passion, mission, service, such a big heart. It's such a pleasure to have you as a colleague, a friend. Yeah, and I just look forward to watching all these wonderful projects continue to grow into the future. So yeah, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for coming on. And yeah, I wish you a great year ahead.
Likewise, man. Much love. Happy Christmas. Happy New Year.